Girls, it's Mrs. Embry, and I am super excited to read you my story today. But first, I'm going to say I'm super bummed that we don't get to spend the last 2 days together before Christmas. So I thought I would read you a very special Christmas story, one of my favorites, sitting next to my class Christmas tree in my jammies, and I can't wait for you to hear it, okay? So, it's one of my favorites. It's called The Polar Express. And a lot of you have probably heard this story before, or maybe even watched the movie, but here it is. It's really good. It's written by Chris Van Allsburg. Okay. The Polar Express. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me that I'd never hear, the ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There's no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear sounds, though not of the ringing bells, but it came from the sounds of hissing steam, squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the open door of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest, then looked at my window. I put on my slippers and robe. I tipped down those stairs and out the door. "All aboard!" the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. "Well," he said, "are you coming?" "Where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course," he answered. "This is the Polar Express." I took his outstretched hand and he pulled me aboard. The train was filled with other children, all their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and we ate candies with nougat centers and white as snow. We drank hot cocoa as thick and as rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of the towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express went northward. Look at him serving that hot cocoa. Yummy. Soon there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forest where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon, but the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we rang along, rolling over the peaks and through the valleys like a car on a roller coaster. The mountains turned into hills and the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice, the great polar ice cap. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on the frozen sea. "There," said the conductor, "is the North Pole." And we all know who lives at the North Pole. The North Pole, it was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first, we saw no elves. "They are gathering at the center of the city," the conductor told us. "That is where Santa will give his first gift of Christmas." "Who receives the first gift?" we all asked. The conductor answered, "He will choose one of you." The first gift of Christmas, that would be awesome. "Look!" shouted one of the children. "The elves!" Outside, we saw hundreds of elves. As our train grew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no farther, we stopped, and the conductor let us outside. If you look close, you can see all the elves waiting for Santa. There he is, the big man himself. We pressed through the crowd at the edge of the large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing their silver sleigh bells that hung on their harnesses. It was a magical sound, like nothing I've ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart and Santa Claus appeared. The elves all cheered wildly. He marched over to us and pointing to me said, "Let's have this fellow here." He jumped onto his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee and he asked, "Now, what would you like for Christmas?" I knew that I could have any gift I could imagine, but the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's gift bag. What I wanted more than anything was one of the silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut the bell from the reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it to Santa. He stood holding the bell high above him and called out, "The first gift of Christmas!" The clock struck midnight and the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled above us all. They disappeared into the night, dark, polar sky. Remember, he put his bell in his robe pocket. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked me to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus's sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the kids said. But the train had suddenly lurched and started moving forward. We were on our way home. Look at how sad he is that he lost the bell. It fell in a hole in his pocket. It broke my heart to lose that bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled out. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas!" he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one small last box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was a silver bell. There was a note. "Found this in the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. My mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I'd shaken the bell, my parents didn't hear a sound. Santa found his bell in his sleigh. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found that one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for those who truly believe. Do you truly believe in Santa? If so, Mrs. Embry is going to give you a nice silver bell that's specially from the North Pole. And when you ring it, you should be able to hear it. You should be able to hear it if you truly believe in Santa Claus. Boys and girls, Mrs. Embry hopes you have a very magical, wonderful Christmas. And I love you all, and I hope to see you soon. Bye, boys and girls.